What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys the next episode of the Elder Scrolls Online Fireside Chat podcast. So as you can see below me, the topics that we are going to be covering today are a review of the first podcast, as well as a discussion on build variety in the Elder Scrolls Online. So the reason I want to go over a review of the first podcast is because whenever you start a new series, especially, a podcast is something I've never done before, there's always going to be hiccups, things that you should have considered but didn't consider, and just, some general kinks that need to be ironed out whenever you start off a new series. Thankfully, the feedback that I got on my first podcast was very constructive. No one was rude. And everything was just, it was really nice. And I very much appreciate the constructive feedback. And I also, of course, you guys saw the big long comment I put on there. I also, very much critiqued and criticized myself when I went back and watched my first video. So basically now, the issues that were covered were audio issues with high ends clipping. So when my voice got a little bit louder, the higher sounds kind of clipped a little bit. And in my opinion, the sound sounded a little bit more muddled than I think it normally does. So I think I fixed that. I was like 99% sure I knew what was causing that problem. So I did work to fix that. In addition, people said that I was repeating myself a lot. That there was a couple points that I made, probably like 3 times. And the reason that happened was because my initial goal for the podcast was to go for a very raw feeling where I just had a topic and I talked about it. But I think that I went too raw. I went with not enough guideline, with not enough structure to the podcast overall. I can keep that unedited feeling, like not scripted feeling, but make it flow better by having my main point with some sub points underneath it in like a small document on my computer while I do the podcast. So I think that's how I'm going to do it. Moving forward, I obviously I think I had the right idea, but it was not implemented as properly as it could have been. So I am now reading. I have like a little list of points here that I made in a notepad that I have. So I'm reading off that. And then if I have guests on in the future, I'm going to try to do a similar thing where I have kind of like a structure of what we want to talk about and things that we want to mention. And we will talk around those points. We're still going to free talk, still going to free ball, but we're going to talk around those points. Another thing that was brought up was possibly putting the podcast on something like SoundCloud, iTunes, etc. I do want to know your guys' thoughts about that. I thought it would be fine just keeping it on YouTube, but if you guys want me to put it on like another service as well, I can. The one I'm leaning towards, if I do decide to do that, is SoundCloud. Simply because it's what I use for when I listen to podcasts and listen to some music that's not really on YouTube or something, or like on my phone, I'll use SoundCloud. So if that is that something you guys are interested in, do not care, just keep it on YouTube, whatever. Let me know your thoughts. And then the last point was that and this was kind of more of a this was not really brought up that much, but like 1 or 2 people did mention it, but I just wanted to cover it. Some people said that my last video did come off a little ranty. I didn't mean for it to sound ranty. That was not my intention. I wasn't really angry when I was talking about it. I wasn't upset when I was talking about it. I think that kind of was a little confused with passion, because that's kind of where I was coming from. I love ESO. I think it's a great game. I've been having so much fun with it, and I'm really passionate about the game. I'm passionate about my YouTube channel, and I, of course, want to see ESO grow because, ESO is a great game. As ESO grows, my channel will grow, and etc., etc. So I like the game too. I love the game. It's the main game I'm playing now. I'm getting my girlfriend into the game, so I want to see it be as good as possible. So that's kind of, it came from a place of passion, not from a place of anger. And I was actually talking to someone who is a very prominent figure in an IT company. He's actually one of my patrons, and he was mentioning to me that the back-end issues are not as simple as just dedicating 4 months to it and fixing the server problems, and that it's something that needs to be rolled out over a long period of time. And I said, okay, I didn't know that, so, that obviously is something on me for not knowing that, but it does not take away from my point that I still do think, regardless of the time and regardless of the effort, I think that for the game to grow past its inevitable maximum number of players, that it's going to need to be done at some point. So it still does not take away from my my main message from the end of that last from that last podcast. And then before I get into the main topic of this one, I just want to ask you guys, do you have any suggestions for future podcasts? Are there any topics that you guys want me to discuss? Any specific things you want me to talk about? This one was a viewer requested topic. But please, if you guys have any suggestions for future podcasts, leave them below. I'd love to get a queue. You guys know me and my queues. I love having video queues. I love having podcast queues, like ideas in the bank, so that I could just week after week just go through the ideas, go through my ideas. So if you have any comments or suggestions about future podcasts and future episodes, please leave a suggestion below. Moving into tonight's topic, we have build variety in the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, especially as a player of a different MMO, like I was an ex-WoW player, everyone knows, played WoW for a very long time, switched to ESO about a year ago. I really feel that ESO has some of the best customizability for your character and build variety in your character of any MMO that I've played, and I've played a lot of different MMOs, because it's just, there are so many factors that go into your character, and there are so many ways to play viably and to play well, that you really, if you can really make a character your own and something that no one else has ever done. You really can do that. There's a couple people in my community, especially, who don't follow the meta ways of thinking and the traditional ways of thinking. They always make these weird out-of-the-box builds, and they perform very well with them. Even in like a trial environment, they perform very, very well. And it's awesome to see people with all these unique and crazy builds that no one's ever thought of and tried before perform and do well, because it shows that you can really customize your character to be your own. And if you understand the ins and outs of the character, you can make it work regardless of what anyone says. And I find that very, very cool, because you have all these factors. You have your class choice, and every class can perform every role. You have the ability selection, you know, with the open freedom to use any of the 3 armor types and any of the weapon types. Excuse me. You also have vampirism and lycanthropy. There's loads of skill lines, champion points, and there's an immense set of gear, like an immense amount of gear sets to choose from, that just really opens up your character to so many different possibilities, and it's really only limited by your imagination, regardless of what the perceived meta is. That's one of the cool things about ESO that I love so much, is that you can just really make your character however you want to make it, however you think is cool. Especially what I love that in PvP. I feel like PvP is even more conducive to that sometimes than PvE is, because I feel like, you know, PvE is generally more of a number crunching type of environment, while PvP is more dynamic, has a lot more possibilities, and there's a lot more different scenarios that could pop up, and no 2 encounters are the same. So because of that, I feel like you're more free with what you're able to do, being that there isn't a static encounter, and, you know, people could eventually figure out, you know, in this static encounter, this is the most efficient way to do it, while in PvP, you really don't have any 2 of the same type of encounters. So there could be, you know, better ways or more efficient ways to play a class or a certain build, but ultimately it's up for even people to discover a future meta, a future most efficient way of playing your character. But I'm going to get into that a little bit more in a second, because there are tons of build subsets. You know, there's so many different ways that you can aim your character's build. You know, I was talking about dungeons. There's also, you have DPS, tank, and healer. So that's 3 different types of builds right there just for dungeons. Then you also have that for trials. Then you have solo builds. You have thief/assassin builds, role-playing builds, PvP-focused builds, which also have DPS, tank, and healing roles within PvP. Yes, you can even be a tank in PvP. I get that question a lot on my streams and my videos. Tanks in PvP are generally CC bots, disruptors, off healing, and just provide group utility. So you can even play something like that in PvP. You can make a ganking build for PvP, a dueling build, and you can really build for your playstyle and how you play. Like I said before, PvP is so dynamic. There's so many different encounters, small scale, large scale, 1v1, dueling, etc., that you can build for the encounters that you like to play. You could build for your playstyle and how you play, and what you find best. Like, for example, I play a Magic Dragon Knight. One of my friends also plays a Magic Dragon Knight. He thinks that double sword and board is the way to go. I think double sword and board sucks. It doesn't mean either one of us are right or either one of us are wrong. He makes double sword and board work, and he feels that it's the best for how he plays. So maybe for him, double sword and board is the best. But for me, with how I play, I hated double sword and board. It did not work for me, so I went sword and board destruction staff. I know someone else, another one of my friends who plays Magic A. He plays Destro Resto. He finds that Destro Resto, for him, is much better than even using a sword and shield. Do I think that that's necessarily the best way to play the Magic Dragon Knight? No, I don't. But that's what he has success with. That's what he is good with. So that's what he is able to use, and he is able to perform at a high level. It doesn't mean that his build is better than mine, or my build's better than his, or he's better than me, or I'm better than him. It just means that we play differently, and we draw strengths from different toolkits based on how we as individuals play. And that's one of the things I love about PvP so much. Now, with PvE, you can still be that way. Granted, when it comes to, I'm talking the end of the game, like you're pushing trial scores and world first, etc. Yes, there is going to be a most efficient way of doing things, simply because the encounters are relatively static. It's, you walk in, these are the mechanics of the boss, this is what's going to happen, and people can figure out the most efficient way to beat that boss. That is meta, most efficient tactic available. People will figure out what is the best meta way to beat this boss. But don't let the perceived meta for PvP, there is a meta for PvP and for PvE. Don't let and this is what I always tell people, don't let the perceived meta restrict you from doing what you want to do. And I know some veteran players might be screaming, telling me that I'm just gonna usher in an age of people that are playing, Nightblade healers and Templar tanks and whatever. But that's how I feel. I feel that meta as a term, especially in a game like ESO, meta is very fluid, and it is the most efficient tactic available, but it is what you perceive as the most efficient tactic available, because maybe there is another tactic that you have not thought of, or that someone else has not thought of. And that is why I always tell people, now this is more true for PvP than it is for PvE, because, it just is. With how the encounters are, that is simply how it is. But it is still true for PvE, because, again, one of the best healers that I play with is a Dragon Knight. Let that sink in. And yes, he heals trials too, with no problem. He has healed Mauve Lorcage on his Dragon Knight healer. It can be done. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Play what you find cool and interesting, and what you think you're gonna like to do. Because unless you're pushing world first, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Let yourself because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of players in the game will tell you, you must play this way or you suck. If you don't play this way, we're not going to invite you to our group. If you don't do this, you can't participate. And I feel that in a game like ESO that has so much build variety and that has so many different factors that make a good build, you should at least give people a chance. At least give people a chance to prove themselves. Because like I said, this one guy heals on a Dragon Knight. He gets crap for it all the time, but then as soon as he starts healing, people shut up. People take that step back and go, all right, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. And then in PvP, right, if you look at the Clockwork City patch, at the beginning of the patch, everyone said Wardens suck. Wardens are terrible. Wardens are the worst class. Throw them in the dumpster. If you ask those same people now what the best class is, they will all tell you Stamina Warden. Stamina Warden is the best PvP class right now. And it is because people played the Stam Warden, even though people thought it was the worst, found the potential in this damn warden, and now everyone looks at it and is like, damn, this class is rocking our shit and needs to be nerfed a little bit and be brought back into line, you know? For example, the Defile meta that just popped up in PvP. There weren't, as far as I know, I could be wrong here, there weren't any big changes to Defile recently. But people realize that with the way that the game's playing and how people are playing and how people are building, if you stack Defile, you'll just crap on people and you will just destroy, especially in 1v1s against people who don't use shields. You know, they will not be able to heal through your stuff. And that is what I always tell people, that the meta is ever changing. So don't let people, and how I'm connecting the meta to the discussion is that don't let people tell you that just because what you want to do is not the meta does not mean that you can't make your character and build your character with all the variety and feel that you want out of your character, and it won't be efficient. So just do the thing, score the points, heal the guys, tank the mobs, kill the noobs, you know, however you find is best to do it. Granted, now keep in mind though, on that same note, effective build creation does take time. Don't take what I'm saying now and go run double resto staff Stam Templar and be like, well, Dottz Gaming said I could do whatever I want and be effective. You know, you need to still build within an effective range. You still need to build your character effectively and, you know, within what is good for your character, you know. Like, you need to still run things that are good. You can't just run a whole bunch of bad stuff and be like you know, Dottz Gaming said I could do this and that'll be, you know, I'll be fine. What I was trying to say is that you can still be effective and you can still do well with a build that isn't as close to the, you know, the accepted best, but you still need to make sure that you have the things in your toolkit and that you have the stats available and the bonuses available to make yourself effective. You can't run, you know, 7 heavy double resto stab Stam DPS is what I'm trying to say. You know, you guys know what I mean. I just want to put out that little disclaimer so that people don't get a little bit of ruffled up about it. But guys, theory crafting and experimentation is something that I do also get asked about a lot, and it is something that does take a lot of time. It is something that you need to practice at, and I believe truly that building your character in an effective manner is something that is best done through practice. You know, I have so much gear in my bank that's useless and that I'll never touch and I'll never use again because I tried to use it on my character, tried to see if it would work. It didn't. It sucked. So I threw it back in the bank. I didn't delete it because I may use it for another time, but I threw it back in the bank and was like, this was a failed endeavor. And because you can just copy someone's build, you can just use exactly what they use all you want, but you're not going to learn anything from it. You know, especially like you're not going to learn anything from it. Maybe that person plays a little bit differently than you. Maybe they're a little bit better at sneaking in a heavy attack than you, or using a light, or weaving in their light attacks, or keeping their buffs up. You know, that person may be a little bit better than at one of those things than you are. So for them, the build that they put up and the build that they're using is the most effective build for them. But if you copy it and find, wow, this build is bad, maybe it's because you don't play the same way as them, or your strengths lie in different areas. So what I always encourage people to do is look at other people's builds. This is how I do it. I look at other people's builds. I look and see what other people are doing to think about my own build, to get my own creativity going, to kind of help see, okay, this is what this person thinks about that, but this is what this person thinks about that. I kind of agree with this, and I definitely agree with that. So let me combine this, do this kind of way. So then it ends up becoming your own build and becoming as effective as it can over time. And that's the beauty of this game. And that's the beauty of the build variety, is that you can just pick and choose and pick things and just combine to make your build and however you want it. And if you're not even looking to build for something like PvP or PvE and just, you know, something more like Thief or Assassins or just role-playing, you can do that too. You know, there's so many like RP skill lines. You have Ledger Domain, which has a lot of RP elements. You have the Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, and you can just build for that too. You could build a really super fast build for, even if you want to talk about PvP. You don't even have to build to kill people. You could just build to kill the NPCs and take resources and make sure that you run really, really fast, you know, and do stuff like that. you can really build to just do what you want in this game. And in my opinion, that is what makes Elder Scrolls Online as good as it is, and what has always kept me coming back. But that is pretty much it for today, guys. I just wanted to kind of touch on build variety. I did dive into meta a bunch because I do believe that meta and build variety do go a little hand in hand. Like I said, for those of you guys who are big believers and champions of meta, at the top tiers of the game, we're talking world first trials. There's probably there is a most efficient way to do things sometimes, but you can't. For people that are playing the game otherwise, though, that aren't going for that, they can get away, in my opinion, at least through my experiences and what I've seen and the people I've played with. You can get away with running what you find to be good for you, and like I said, that's what I find great about the game. But if you guys like this podcast, if you guys have noticed the improvements and feel that it has gotten better this week than it did last week, I'd appreciate it if you smacked a like on the video and let me know in the comments below. I really took all your feedback in the last podcast to heart, and I wanted to make this one even better so that you guys could look to the series like, Dottz hit the nail, he hit the nail on the head this time. This podcast is going to be badass, and I'm going to keep coming back week after week and listening to what he has to say in his smooth, fantastic voice. I'm kidding. But like I said, like and comment. If you guys like what I'm doing here, like what you're seeing on the Dottz Gaming YouTube channel, and also want to catch some live streams, hit that sub button as well as hit the bell to keep notifications on. Guys, please also pay attention to Twitter and Discord. YouTube's notification system isn't always the best, so following me on these other mediums will 100% make sure that you're getting notifications when I'm doing things here on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the ESO Fireside Chat podcast. As always, I am Dottz Gaming, and I will see you all in the next one.